Would you get away from this marginal spot on a final table? Hey everybody, I'm Ian Simpson, and today we are going to look at a really interesting hand from the final table of 888 Live Barcelona. So we come into the action with second in chips, under the gun, five-handed, with a marginal decision to look at. They've got ace-9 offsuit. If the chip leader isn't bullying, isn't applying pressure, and the shorter stacks are in survival mode, you can definitely get away with opening this hand. However, if people are pushing back, especially the chip leader, this hand becomes a lot more dicey. We do open, the big blind defends with the lovely 9-10 of hearts, and we get a flop. And boy, is it a flop, because the big blind flops the absolute nuts on 6, 7, 8, and all they're thinking about now is the best way to get paid. They check, and under the gun has another marginal spot. They've got the open-ended straight draw, they've got ace high. So they can have the best hand and they can get called by worse, but they could also get blown off their equity at some point in this hand if they apply aggression now. So it's a really tricky decision whether to bet or check. On this occasion, under the gun does bet, and they face the ugly news of being check raised. With an open-ender and ace high, they understandably call, and we're off to a turn. We come to a turn card, it's the 2 of spades creating a flush draw. The big blind with the absolute nuts has to think of the best way of getting the nuts paid. Do they check and let their opponent bluff, or do they bet really small, or do they just jam now with their 1.1, 1.2x pot sizing? I think a quarter pot bet would look really good here. It would keep our opponent in the pot much more often, and when we have the nuts, that's really good, exploitatively speaking. I could get behind a jam though, because we're going to want to jam some bluffy hands like a 9x of spades, or maybe a pair and a straight draw, and that would balance out that range nicely too. It would also stop the board getting too scary. Pocket aces might not pay you off if the river comes another straightening card. Under the gun does face a third pot bet. They have a really gross decision right now because the big blinds check raised and barreled on the final table, and we have an open-ender that kind of has the equity to continue, but is in a really ropey spot, and we're putting in a lot of chips with really marginal equity here. I don't fault the call, but as I say, it's a really ugly spot. I think I might actually be able to get behind a fold here. So the river comes a 5, and it's just a cooler card for both players. Of course, the money's going to go all in now. The real tricky part of this hand is under the gun's decision points were always marginal until the river. They had a marginal spot opening in the first place. They had a marginal spot betting or checking when they had the opportunity to c-bet, and then they got into an ugly spot on the turn as well. So those are the spots where under the gun could have gotten away from this hand. So with all this in mind,